Two murder investigations from the case files of Lieutenant Joe Kenda.
You all will die today!
First, a family affair spirals out of control.
Oh my God, Dad!
There was no justice.
And Kenda must figure out why.
Whatever happened started right here.
Drop the keys out the window. Do it now!
You're being handled here at gunpoint.
Back up the car!
Don't do something stupid.
Then, a church of God turns into a house of horrors.
I am the Lord Jesus Christ!
They were praying for their lives.
He has an inherent violence about him.
Don't touch the knife, Richard.
He's not complying. He's just kind of staring right through us.
Don't do it, Richard!
In my business, you become a very light sleeper. I had a lot of people wanted to kill me, among other things. If I would hear any noise, I was awake. I was not just awake, I was wide awake. This is the way our life was. It was from one event to the next.
It's the middle of the night. Larry and Kelly Schlott are asleep. When all of a sudden,
Larry, what's that?
Sounds like someone's at the front door.
Who the hell could it be at this hour of the night?
I don't know. I'll go check it out. Stay here.
Larry, what are you doing?
Larry picks up a baseball bat. He's ready to use it if he has to.
Louise?
But he's shocked when he opens a door. His neighbor Louise is crying and frantic.
It's Peter. He's been shot. I called 911. I need you to help me.
She knew that Larry knew CPR, so she asked him to come render aid to Pete.
Oh my God. Pete! Pete! Pete!
Obviously has serious injuries.
Hold on, Pete. You with me, buddy?
Larry knows it's not working. It's not going to be able to save him.
A few miles north, Sergeant Joe Kenda is struggling with his own personal battle.
I don't sleep well. And I would often slip out the front door and be on my front porch and smoke a cigarette and think about all the things I've done and all the things I've seen and cannot unsee. And now here we go again.
Within the hour, Kenda arrives on scene and meets with Detective Skip Arms.
At that time in 1986, I was a detective sergeant in Homicide, meaning I'm a supervisor. I'm responsible for a call team of 3 detectives that worked for me, but I had a standby call team. I could get as many as 6 people and can expand as necessary. If I needed 12 people or 18 people, I could get them, but we'd start with 3. So as a sergeant, I would call each one of those guys in their home and wake them up, give them an address and say, we have a shooting and apparently he's not going to survive. See you there.
Hey, Skip.
Evening, Joe.
When I arrived on scene, there was very little activity going on. There was no traffic in the streets. It was really very quiet.
This particular scene, by the time we get there, it's like 3:15 in the morning, and the area is dead. Everybody's asleep, the excitement's over, the ambulance has left, there's no sirens running, so there's no witnesses, there's not even any press. It's uniquely quiet, which was pleasant for me. You didn't have to deal with a circus when you get there. There was no circus. So we talked to a patrol officer and said, can you tell us what you know about this shooting?
So what we got?
We've got one shooting victim, shot multiple times. He left here in the ambulance alive, but we're not sure what his status is now.
You got an ID?
Yes.
The officer says that the victim is a 35-year-old male whose name is Peter Martinez. He was shot in the front yard of his own home.
Any witnesses?
Martinez's wife and kids were in the house at the time of the shooting, but they've gone to the hospital with him in the ambulance. That's about it.
They've already awakened several of their direct neighbors, all of whom say they didn't see anything. So the only thing left for us there is the crime scene itself. You can learn a lot from a crime scene if you listen and pay attention. The crime scene will speak to you. It will whisper, but it will speak to you.
The victim was lying here when the medical arrived.
What's that? Looks like a crescent wrench.
Let's make sure we have that dusted for prints.
It would appear that the crescent wrench would have some role in this situation. It potentially could have either been an offensive or a defensive weapon.
We also got some casings over here.
How many?
5 total, 25 caliber.
We also found slugs in the yard, too.
The front yard appeared to be trampled down, so that indicated that perhaps there was some kind of struggle that may have occurred on the yard and then moved into the street.
Whatever happened started right here.
My experience tells me there's a confrontation. Words get exchanged, threats are made, things get out of hand, and it ends with gunfire.
Which hospital was the victim transported to?
St. Francis.
Yeah, Skip, I'll meet you there.
Works for me.
So for now, we've learned all we can here. We need to respond to the hospital where our victim is to determine A, his condition, and more importantly, B, because that's where we believe we're going to find our witnesses.
Mr. Martinez was shot 5 times in all. Once in the shoulder, chest, stomach, and twice in the arm. He's in surgery now, but he looks doubtful. You know, another thing that you should probably be aware of is that the medics said they found him in his boxer shorts when they first picked him up.
Really?
The odds are he was either getting ready for bed or was already in bed. And when he was awakened by something, he came out in his underwear, and whatever happened next resulted in 5 holes in him that he didn't have a little while earlier.
Was his family around?
His wife and children in the lobby.
Yeah, thanks, Doc.
So we encounter first the wife of the victim, Louise, and she has 2 sons that are with her, Peter Jr. and Eric.
Excuse me. I'm Sergeant Kenda, and this is Detective Irons.
I'm Louise.
Do you think we could talk to you for a minute with you and your sons?
Well, I'd prefer if they had a little more time, but I can talk to you.
They're worried about their father. No point in even attempting a conversation with them.
Could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with your husband?
Well, we aren't technically married, but Peter and I have been together for over 15 years.
And everything was good between you guys?
Yeah, we had a good relationship. We actually work together, so we argue sometimes, but nothing serious.
Peter and Louise are both custodians at a building downtown. Doesn't pay a lot of money, and it's hard work, but they get to work together, and they enjoy that. And it's something that Louise really is happy about, that she gets to spend her days working with the love of her life.
So what exactly happened last evening?
Well, Peter and I were working, and we got home around 10:30.
They went in to check on their boys, and they then made their way to bed.
I'm exhausted. What do we have going on tomorrow, babe?
Eric's got baseball in the afternoon, and I'm meeting Lucy for lunch.
All right, well, I think I'm just gonna go get some stuff for this weekend.
Wake up, Peter!
Who the hell's that?
He goes and opens the door.
Peter!
And it's his sister, Karen Michaels,
What's up, brother? You gonna let me in or what?
and her friend Lucia, and they are both extremely intoxicated.
Hey, Louise! Let's have a drink.
They had been at a party, and they came over there to keep the party underway.
Peter and his sister get along?
Sort of. I think Karen can be a real pain in the ass.
He was really sometimes super annoyed with her because of her manners and why she lived her life the way she did, of which he did not approve. He thought she drank too much and too often, and so on. So there's always this back and forth between he and his sister, and now his sister's at his front door.
A sibling dynamic is very complicated because, especially when it's an older brother and a younger sister, a lot of times the older brother wants to take care of the younger sister, wants to help her out and everything. But after a while, you can say, hey, wait a minute, here I am, working hard and everything. You can't hold a job. It's almost like you want to do tough love in a way, but yet you don't want to give up on them. You always want to be there to help them if you can. But then it's like, well, am I enabling this to happen? Is she like this because I'm always here to bail her out if she needs me?
At first, Peter was annoyed, but after a while, he started to loosen up and relax.
I don't know what either one of you are talking about.
I remember the old days.
No, you don't.
And they open some beers, and they turn on some music, and they're talking, and they're actually enjoying themselves.
I hope they do another block party.
Yeah, I gotta take a leak. I'll be back.
Everything seemed to be going well.
What's that song?
You can change it if you want. The stereo's in Junior's room. Just try to be quiet. He's sleeping. You want another?
Yeah. You know me?
But all of a sudden, something happened.
And Louise heard some type of a commotion in Peter Jr.'s room.
Come on, Lucia, let's go.
Wait, why?
I said, come on, let's get the hell out of here.
What happened?
Karen, what's wrong?
Let's get your husband.
Louise asked Peter what happened, and his response was, "Oh, that's just Karen. Good riddance. I'm glad she's gone." They then went to bed.
Not 30 minutes after we laid down, we heard people shouting outside.
Damn it, Karen!
Louise looks out the window. She sees two cars, a red car and a gray car. And there's a bunch of people out there, and she doesn't know who these people are.
What were they saying?
I don't know, but they sounded upset.
So Louise is going to call 911 to report this problem.
911, what's your emergency?
But before she can say a word,
Hi, there's... So I dropped the phone and I ran outside. The red car was gone and the gray one was pulling away. And Peter was just lying there in the street, all alone.
Do you think Karen could have shot Peter?
I don't think so. I mean, it's her own brother.
Okay, you said you saw a gray car. Do you know what type of car it was?
Yeah, I think so.
Having this information at hand, it's important for us to try to find the gray car
Sergeant Kenda, dispatch.
and the occupants of the car.
How do you put on APB?
so we offer the description of the suspect vehicle over the air to all officers, all points bulletin, a suspect vehicle in what probably is a fatal shooting, consider armed and dangerous.
Luckily, it doesn't take long for an officer to spot the vehicle in question.
31 to dispatch.
Dispatch to 31.
Got eyes on that possible suspect vehicle. Go ahead and send me back up 2000 block of Corona Street.
We basically call it a felony traffic stop.
Driver, turn off the car and drop the keys out the window.
They fear that the occupants are potentially involved in a serious violent felony crime.
Do it now.
So the driver was directed to exit first.
Driver, step out, slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them.
He was a tall, black male, which didn't fit the descriptions.
Back up to the sound of my voice. Do it now.
Passenger, step out of the car. Do it now.
When the passenger steps out of the car,
Hands on your head.
she is Karen Michaels, sister of the victim. How convenient. So now we do have the right car, and we certainly have the right people. Now this situation has become dangerous. We're investigating the shooting of a father of two children, Peter Martinez. And patrol officers have just stopped a car that was seen fleeing from the scene,
Driver, step out, slowly.
containing an occupant that was involved in a disturbance with the victim.
On your knees.
You're being handled here at gunpoint. Don't do something stupid.
Don't move.
Because of the short time frame between the shooting and the contact of this vehicle,
All right, stand up.
the chances were very high the occupants were involved in the crime.
Put your hands behind your back. Do it now.
So they had to be treated as potentially violent felony suspects.
It's clear. Clear.
So the two occupants were driven to the Detective Bureau. And once there, they were placed in separate rooms.
So what do you want to do?
Why don't you take Karen and I'll talk to this guy?
Works for me.
This individual identifies himself as Hank Michaels, and he is Karen Michaels' husband. And they have this car registered in both of their names.
Is someone gonna finally tell me what the hell is going on?
I was actually hoping that you'd be the one to do that.
We know Karen left the house upset. Did she go home and tell her husband that she had this fight with her brother? And did he come back over to the house in his gray car to avenge his wife?
How'd you end up going for a drive with your wife so early in the morning?
Man, I was sleeping. And Karen came home all worked up.
He says his wife woke him up when she came home. She said she got in a terrible fight with her brother, and she wants him to drive her to her mother's house.
And you didn't ask what went on between her and Peter?
No, I was arguing about something. And besides, Karen was drunk, and I did not want to get her going. So I just drove her to her mother's house.
And as they were in the act of doing that, they're stopped by the police, and they got guns pointed at him, and he doesn't know what's going on.
So you never went to Peter's house at all?
No, not at all.
So there's Hank's story. Is that believable? Well, maybe it is. Think back to Louise. Louise says she sees Karen with some people. If this guy is there to defend his wife, he's the one knocking on the door.
So we try to find a record for Hank. He doesn't have a record. He's clean. At face value, there's no reason to believe he's being deceptive to us. So now our next step is to want to talk with Karen and see where that takes us.
Wake up, Miss Michaels.
What the hell are you doing?
I want to talk to you about your brother.
Which brother?
Karen Michaels is beyond drunk. She's loaded, and she couldn't hit the ground with her hat.
Your brother Peter? Peter Martinez?
What about him?
He was shot 5 times. Do you happen to know who did that to him?
I ain't talking until I get a lawyer.
Well, you're drunk, Karen, but you know enough to keep your mouth shut when you're in a jam. And guess what, baby cakes? You are in a jam.
All right. Well, we're still going to hold you for the time being.
Whatever.
So have we gotten very far? No. We have her, which is useful, but she has nothing to say to us. So now we need another pathway to find out who we're looking at.
So we felt that with some time passing, we would want to circle back and see if either Louise knew anything new or if by this point, either of her sons were willing to talk.
Have you received any word on your husband?
He went in for another surgery, so we're just here to get something to eat before heading back.
We were wondering if either one of your sons might be able to talk to us.
I really don't think Eric is, but Junior could probably talk to you. Junior, come here for a minute.
Eric was only 11 years old when this occurred, and so it's understandable that at that age, going through such a traumatic event with your father, you're going to be very distraught, very upset, very emotional.
Peter Jr. is in high school. We think he's our best shot because he's a little older and maybe a little less emotional.
Want to have a seat?
And maybe a little more honest.
Junior, did you happen to see any of what happened to your father last night?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened?
I was sleeping in my bedroom when my Aunt Karen woke me up. Hey, Karen, what's going on?
How do you work this thing?
They had long lengths of speaker wire coming from the stereo in the son's bedroom to the speakers in the living room area. Peter Jr. says she wants to change the music, that she can't make this thing operate.
Hey, Karen!
Karen, what the hell are you doing in here?
Damn it, Karen, don't be disrespecting my house. Just look at my son.
The year radio's crap.
Karen, get the hell out of my son's room now.
Oh, shut up. What you gonna do?
He slaps her open hand in the face hard.
You're always walking around here drunk asking me for money. You don't respect no one. Get out of here.
Go to hell, Peter.
She stormed out of the room, and my dad told me to go back to sleep. But a little while later, something woke me up again.
Wake up, Peter!
He was awakened, so he gets up in a haze. Looks out the window, he sees his aunt, Karen Michaels. Her children are with her.
Karen, what are you doing?
and they are in an argument.
Did you see what happened?
Well, I ran outside and tried to help.
Dad, what's going on? Off my property. Dad, Junior, go get my gun.
And the kid says, I didn't know what he meant because we don't have a gun. I guess he was trying to bluff him.
Hey, calm down. Calm down.
I went back inside because I thought it was over, but it wasn't.
Peter Jr. says,
Oh my God, Dad!
He heard several gunshots.
As the gray car drove away, Peter Jr. tells us that he was able to see the person that was in the passenger seat, and that is most likely our shooter. This is the break we need.
Did you recognize him?
Yes, I know who it is.
This whole search process in this investigation has to be to find a good witness, and we have just discovered a star witness. Now, who might this shooter be? We're investigating the shooting of Peter Martinez, who was gunned down in front of his own home.
Oh my God, Dad!
We've now learned that his son, Peter Jr., got a good look at the shooter.
So what's the guy's name?
Jake Ferguson.
So Jake is our dude. It isn't Karen, and it's certainly not her husband.
Who's Jake Ferguson?
He dates my cousin Nina.
The information that Peter Jr. could give us about Jake is he's a white male, he's about 18 years old or so.
He's only been in town a few weeks, but everybody classifies him as a bully, and everybody knows that Jake always has a gun.
Do you know where we could find this Jake?
I think he's in the army or something.
Thank you for talking to us. Yeah, we'll let ourselves out. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it turns out that Mr. Ferguson is in the United States Army. He is on a federal reservation where we have no jurisdiction. We have to elicit the cooperation of military police authorities to make any physical arrest on Fort Carson. So we contact the MP desk, which operates 24 hours a day on Carson, and we explain that Jake Ferguson is in fact wanted by us for questioning involving an attempted murder at that point, and that they should find him for us and put him in a holding cell at the MP headquarters on Fort Carson. Because when you're in the Army, they own you. You don't have rights. You're under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to advise you of your right to counsel or anything. It's a whole different system of law. So we drive over to Fort Carson, and we'll find out that Mr. Ferguson is living and working on Fort Carson as a private E1 in the United States Army. So we have to elicit the cooperation of military police authorities, and they snatch up Jake Ferguson in a heartbeat.
Jake, I'm with the Colorado Springs Police Department. Do you know why I'm here?
I think so.
You can just see it in his eyes. It's obvious that he's scared. As someone who interviews and interrogates people, you need to gear your questioning based on what you see in order to be effective.
Am I under arrest?
Not at the moment. But I need to know what happened last night.
Okay. I'll tell you everything.
He didn't hold back. He really needed to get this off his chest.
I was at my girlfriend Nina's house, and we had a few beers, watched a movie, and then I fell asleep on the couch when her brother Rico woke me up. Jake, come on, get up, man.
What's going on?
Come on, we've got to go.
Nina?
She's already in the car. We got to help my mom. You got your gun?
Yeah, right here.
All right, let's go.
The brother Rico tells Jake they're going to go settle a fight between Nina's mom and her brother Peter Martinez.
He sees this as an opportunity to be an enforcer, to go help the family defend their honor, so to speak.
You have to remember who these people are. They are people who live on the margins of society. They're not well paid. They have few, if any, possessions. They are the people society ignores. They're the drones of society that do the work nobody else wants to do. As a result, the only thing they have of value to them is their self-respect. And they will defend that to the death because they have nothing else. They've been kicked to the curb by society all their lives. You can say things to me, you can pay me poorly, you can give me lots of instructions on what I have to do, but don't disrespect me because I won't take that. Not from anybody, not even from blood family. So that's the mentality here.
Who went to Peter's house?
Karen was hammered, so I drove her car. Nina, Rico, and their other sister Marta were in another car.
Peter, come out here. I want to talk to you.
You ain't gonna hit our mom.
Get your ass out here, Uncle Peter.
I kind of hung back by the car while they went up to the house to confront Peter.
Come out here.
Peter jerked the door open, already in a rage,
You a big man hitting a woman up?
Off my property.
and is screaming and yelling and using obscenities toward Karen Michaels and her children.
Man, go to control your kids.
You don't get to tell me what to do with my kids. I'm gonna kick Peter.
Beat his ass, Mom.
Jake says a scuffle begins, followed by them falling down and rolling around in the dirt in the front yard.
Jake said that Karen actually pulled Peter's pants off, leaving him just in his underwear. And then she started laughing at him.
You care? Touch me again.
Hey, do something. Dad,
Come on,
what's
do
going
something.
on? Hey, Junior, go get my gun.
Get in.
You want me to drive?
So they started heading back to the cars. I go to get in the front, but Karen insisted on driving.
Come on, damn it.
Because Karen was drunk, she was having difficulty getting the car started.
Get the hell out of here. What's wrong with you? Yo, back up. Back off the car. What are you, deaf? Are you drunk and stupid? Huh? I said back off the car, old man. What'd you call me? Think you're tough, white boy?
Jake says that he then sees Peter reach for his waistband and pull out an object he said was long and shiny.
Jake panics and empties that gun into Peter Martinez from a range of 3 or 4 feet. And every bullet he fires hits him.
Oh, damn. Oh, damn.
Give me the gun. Give me the gun. It's not like he wasn't asking for it.
Even though she was still pretty intoxicated, the fact that she didn't care whether or not her brother just got shot is pretty callous.
What did Karen do with the gun?
I don't know. I think she has it somewhere in the house.
Well, Jake, I appreciate you being honest with me, but I'm gonna have to place you under arrest. Go ahead and cuff him.
Peter Martinez has been pronounced dead at the hospital. So now it's no longer attempted murder, it's just murder.
After Jake Ferguson's confession, investigators go to the house of Karen Michaels in search of the murder weapon.
We find a .25 caliber semi-automatic pistol that's obviously been wiped clean, but ballistics says this is the weapon that fired the shots that killed Peter Martinez.
Jake was charged with second-degree murder. Karen was charged with accessory to the second-degree murder. And then the district attorney ultimately made the decision to take this case to a grand jury. And after the case was presented to the grand jury, they came back with a no true bill. When a grand jury comes back with a no true bill, it doesn't mean that somebody didn't commit the offense. It means that that body or grand jury feels that there is insufficient evidence to move the case forward to a trial. So there's a lesser standard, if you will, of proof than a jury would require in a regular trial. So what that means for us is that they felt that it didn't rise to the standard. And in this case, most likely, it was probably the issue of assuming that Jake was defending himself as opposed to being the aggressor.
Meaning that, in their opinion, there's insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jacob Ferguson engaged in criminal behavior. So Mr. Ferguson was released without charges, and therefore so was Karen Michaels. And the matter was closed.
You know, it's the kind of thing where really there was no justice. No justice for Peter, no justice for his family, because nobody had to be accountable for what happened to him. Had Peter gone back in the house, closed the door, you know, would he still be alive today? Just makes you wonder. It was just a sad set of circumstances that cost somebody their life.
Mix old family hatreds, loss of control of your emotions, and alcohol, and it often results in violent death. That's a terribly sad thing in the case of Peter Martinez.
Coming up, an unhinged madman threatens the safety of an entire church congregation.
You all will die today.
This is St. Mary's Cathedral. How could this have happened in here?
In January of 1996, a church service was going on. It was Sunday morning, downtown.
How are you?
Near the end of the first service, an usher, Ron Meredith, is passing the collection plate, like they do every Sunday. But a man is sitting in the back and just seemed a little out of it.
These people don't know what the hell they're doing.
Give it to me. Excuse me, sir, that's not yours.
Give it to me, damn it.
Give me that.
There was a lot of confusion.
Sir, back off.
Ron is able to grab it, and the deranged man told everybody,
I am the Lord Jesus Christ. You all will die today.
that made people very, very nervous.
Honey, call the police.
Later that morning, Lieutenant Joe Kenda is on his way into work.
Dispatch to X-ray 1.
The radio cracks and it said 1 X-ray 1. My call sign.
Go for X-ray 1.
Report of a shooting on Bijou Street. Redirect immediately.
Copy that. I'm on the way.
Ooh. On a Sunday morning when this town is either in church or still asleep? Pretty unusual. I arrived at the address before I realized it's the St. Mary's Church. It's a huge church and beautiful building. Been there for many, many years. My parents got married there in 1938.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Morning. So what in the world's going on here?
Come inside, take a look.
So I walk in that church, as I had done many times. I'm directed to the men's room.
Whoa.
This is St. Mary's Cathedral. How could this have happened in here?
Less than an hour before Lieutenant Kenda arrived on scene, chaos was just beginning to unfold at St. Mary's.
Hello, 911?
911, what's your emergency?
A man just tried to steal from our church, and then he threatened to kill us. And I'm afraid he's gonna try to come back.
We'll send units immediately.
Okay, thank you.
CSPD officers immediately respond, including patrolman Robert Benjamin.
In January of '96, I was in the patrol division.
Who here put in the call? Yeah, right here, we did. Is the suspect still inside? No, he fled. Came in, tried to take our collection plate, and threatened everybody. Where's the rest of the congregation? They're inside. Okay. Can you describe this guy? Well, he's a pretty big guy.
Mr. Meredith told me he was kind of a stocky build, about 180 pounds.
As Ron is talking to the police, something interesting happened.
Yeah, I think I know this guy. His name's Deersmith. Richard Deersmith.
You sure about that?
Yeah, things happen pretty quickly in there, but I'm pretty sure it's him.
So now they're just looking for a description. They're looking for Richard Deersmith.
Give me a moment, please. Gulf 85 to dispatch. Can I get an APB and a white male? 6'2", 180 pounds, name Richard Deersmith.
When officers call in the suspect's name,
Patrol, did you say Deersmith?
it immediately raises red flags.
That's right.
You have a pen handy?
So they find out that Mr. Deersmith has a rather extensive criminal record.
So apparently our suspect has been arrested 17 times in 3 different states. 2 of those were for assaulting an officer.
So you take that in sum, and this not only is a disturbed person, but he has an inherent violence about him. And he's physically capable of carrying it out.
We have his name and description out there. We're looking for him. You call us if anything else happens.
Thank you so much.
The police leave the scene and start looking for the suspect in the neighborhood.
He resides in the area. Witnesses in his neighborhood report they saw Deersmith leave his house carrying his large knife, which they say is routine for him, He's always ranting out loud and talking to himself or to invisible people, and they are very frightened of him. He's obviously deeply disturbed.
While officers are busy canvassing the area, the congregation picks up where it left off.
A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthian brothers and sisters. Strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts. Love is patient.
At that time,
Love is kind.
Richard Deersmith returns to the church, and this time,
I am the sound of God.
he's got a knife in a sheath on his belt.
And if I have the gift of prophecy, comprehend mysteries.
Deersmith did something kind of interesting and maybe unexpected. That he went straight to the bathroom. The people who really deserve a lot of credit, the quick-thinking ushers.
We need to get the police back out here.
Within moments, Officer Benjamin and company are back on the scene.
God will punish you for this!
He's been going crazy in there.
Hey! Hey!
Does he have any weapons on him? Yeah, he's got a knife.
We're going to his room!
Lots of thoughts going through my head, knowing we have a combative suspect in front of us.
Okay, let's get out of here.
It was not the first time that he had been involved in potential violence towards police.
The three officers go to the door,
Somebody get me out of here!
unlock the door.
Hands up, Richard! Put your hands up, Richard. Hands up! Don't do that, Richard.
The ushers hear somebody say, "Don't do it, buddy, don't do it."
The ushers heard a gunshot, and they thought, God, what is going on in there?
That's when the officers come out. And on their radio,
Need a medical down at the church right now.
a shooting officer involved. As I walk in, I see Richard Deersmith lying dead on the floor with a single gunshot wound in the upper left chest. And you stand there for a moment in that doorway and you look in this men's room and you think, why would that happen? We need to find that out.
Shortly after Kenda examines the crime scene, an investigator from the district attorney's office arrives to assist.
On any officer-involved shooting, the district attorney's office is called immediately.
And there's definitely still a lot to figure out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to need to talk to everybody involved.
Of course.
The district attorney's office conduct all police officer-involved shootings independently of the police department. They are investigating why is it necessary for the police to use great force to effect his arrest.
So we teamed all of our investigators and detectives up together and started interviewing all the potential witnesses.
The eyewitness interviews help investigators piece together exactly what happened when Deersmith returned to the church.
When the ushers at the church saw Deersmith come back
I am the sound of God, or a flashing symbol.
with a knife,
And if I have the gift of prophecy,
they were scared. As they had the opportunity to lock him in the bathroom,
Hey! God will punish you for this! Hey! Let me out!
they found the miracle they were praying for.
When Officer Benjamin responded for the second time,
Oh, God!
he knew the suspect had a history of assaulting police.
I was worried about the safety of the parishioners that were in the church.
Somebody get me
He's
out
been
of
in there
here!
going crazy. He's got a knife.
let's go this way.
At the time, all three officers had their hands on their guns. They were ready for anything. They knew he was armed at this point.
Somebody get me out of here!
Police, hands up! Hands up, Richard! Put your hands up, Richard.
Deersmith has the knife. It's a 10-inch blade Bowie knife. Very large knife.
Turn around, Richard.
Turn around, walk backward toward me. Turn around.
He's not complying. He's just kind of staring right through us.
Turn around, Richard. Richard, turn around and slowly walk back toward me. Good. Keep your hands visible. Okay, back up toward me. Very good. Hands up. Keep your hands up where I can see them. Nice and slow. Good. Good. Hand up. Do not put that hand down. Do not touch that knife, Richard.
There's something called a continuum of force, and this is how police officers are trained. You confront someone, you announce to them that they're under arrest. If they physically resist you, you are authorized by law to use whatever force is necessary to overcome that resistance.
Don't do that, Richard. Do not touch that knife. Stop! I am the Lord Jesus Christ!
These people don't know what the hell they're doing.
Oh, God. Lord, let me out! Richard, do not touch that knife! Don't do it, Richard! Richard, no! Richard, stop!
He reached for the knife. At that particular point, I knew I had no other option.
It's a very difficult thing to take a human life. It is. Policemen are trained. Officer Benjamin followed his training to the T. He handled that perfectly under the worst possible circumstances, but it is a devastating emotional effect on the officer.
It wasn't until after everything had calmed down that I started to think about what had transpired. You know, just playing over and over in your head, and you start to sometimes second guess yourself, well, what if I'd have done this different?
In this particular case, the ruling from the district attorney was that the police officer was justified in using deadly force against Mr. Deersmith.
No charges were filed, and the matter was closed. And Mr. Deersmith was left to a higher court.
You never forget it. Quite frankly, it's tough to sleep.
They say Florida nights carry a kind of heat that makes secrets stick to the air, a thickness that refuses to let anything truly disappear. And maybe that's why this story still lingers, why the whispers from 1998 still slide through the mangroves like something half alive, something waiting. It begins with a single photograph sealed inside a crumpled evidence envelope, a grainy snapshot of a girl whose smile seemed frozen at the edge of a promise. She was 19, full of the kind of fire people in small towns never forget, and her name was Alyssa Ward. But in the sticky darkness of August 12th, 1998, she vanished from the roadside like a shadow snatched away mid-step, leaving behind nothing except a stalled car, a flickering hazard light, via an unease that washed over the community like a sudden storm. They called it a mystery, then a tragedy, then a cold case. But the truth is no one ever really knew what to call the night Alyssa disappeared. The road where she was last seen was a lonely stretch of asphalt between Tallahassee and the coast, a road that locals described as quiet during the day and wrong after sunset. Her car was found angled on the shoulder, driver's door cracked open, keys still in the ignition. No signs of struggle, no footprints, no witnesses, just the sound of cicadas rattling in the trees and a dying battery blinking its last red pulse into the dark. The sheriff at the time tried to calm the panic by calling it a mechanical breakdown, maybe a walk to the nearest house gone too far, but no one bought it. People don't just dissolve under the moonlight. Not out there. Not Alyssa. Within hours, the search began. Volunteers combed the woods with flashlights and dogs. Helicopters swept the area with cold beams of white. Deputies moved like shadows through sugar sand and abandoned orange groves. They expected to find something. A shoe, a torn shirt, a sign of the direction she'd taken. They found nothing. The woods felt too clean, as if someone had swept the ground before they arrived. As dawn broke, the air seemed to thicken with dread. The sheriff mumbled to reporters that these things take time, but his eyes were hollow. Everyone felt it. Something was wrong. Something was off. And no one could shake the feeling that whatever happened to Alyssa had been quick, silent, and deliberate. In the days that followed, the investigation grew teeth. Detectives circled through her life, interviewing friends, co-workers, the boyfriend who insisted he'd been home asleep. Rumors multiplied, secret arguments, strangers spotted near the gas station, an unfamiliar pickup truck parked near the bend of the highway where her car was found. But every rumor rose just long enough to catch fire before collapsing under lack of evidence. Alyssa seemed to have slipped into a crack between realities. Unreachable, untouchable, a spectre tangled in the fabric of a town that desperately wanted answers. Then came the detail that set the first wave of shock through the community. Inside Alyssa's car, investigators found a folded hoodie on the passenger seat. Not hers, not her size, not her style. A faded navy blue sweatshirt marked with the emblem of a college she had never attended. No fingerprints, no hairs. Nothing that could speak. Yet the hoodie felt like a message, a clue placed with intention. Detectives pressed everyone who knew her, but no one recognized it. And that stray piece of fabric soon mutated into a symbol of the unknown, a quiet signature left by someone who understood how to erase everything except the faintest outline of their presence. Weeks turned into months. Leads dried up. Desperation filled the spaces where hope used to sit. Posters curled on telephone poles. Reporters stopped calling. The sheriff avoided eye contact during interviews, and by Christmas of 1998, Alyssa Ward had become another name added to Florida's growing list of unresolved disappearances. Cases the state filed away but never truly buried. But there was one detail the public never knew, one detail small enough to overlook but strange enough to haunt the lead detective long after the search was called off. When investigators processed Alyssa's car, they collected a partial smear of biological material on the inside of the driver's door. Too faint for testing at the time, too degraded for identification. It was labeled unknown trace and shelved with the rest of the evidence, a tiny ghost of something that refused to be erased. No one could identify it. No one even knew if it belonged to Alyssa. But it would sit there, dormant, almost forgotten, waiting for the world to change enough to give it a voice. For the next decade, the town carried the weight of her disappearance like a bruise that wouldn't fade. People locked their doors earlier. Parents taught their children to avoid the old highway. Gas station attendants kept watch on strangers with an unease that bordered on paranoia. And every year, on August 12th, Alyssa's mother placed a candle on the roadside where her daughter's car had been found. A ritual of grief, a beacon of longing, a reminder that time could numb a wound but never truly close it. As technology progressed, detectives revisited the evidence box in 2008, hoping new methods might breathe life into the fragments Alyssa left behind. But even with improved testing, the trace sample still refused to cooperate. Too old, too contaminated, too broken. Another dead end. Another echo fading into the static of a cold case that seemed determined to stay frozen. Yet something else occurred that year, something overlooked. A witness came forward claiming that on the night Alyssa vanished, she'd seen a figure walking along the tree line near the highway. Tall, male, moving fast as if trying not to be seen. But without corroboration, without any physical link, the tip dissolved into the abyss of vague recollections and half-truths. The case remained untouched, but the whisper of that nameless figure lingered at the edge of every theory. By 2012, the original investigative team had retired or transferred. The box labeled Ward, Alyssa, 1998, gathered dust in a storage vault under humming fluorescent lights. And the story of the girl who disappeared into the Florida night became more myth than memory, the kind of tale locals traded at bonfires or used to scare newcomers. But the evidence waited, patient as a heartbeat. Because DNA science was evolving faster than anyone expected, and some cases aren't meant to stay buried. Everything changed in 2021, on a morning so quiet it almost felt staged. A state lab analyst, reviewing archived samples for a new statewide initiative, opened Alyssa's case file and scanned the degraded sample taken from the car door. The analyst debated skipping it. Older samples like this rarely produced anything useful, but something about the handwritten label, the faded ink, the sense of history clinging to the envelope made them pause. The analyst loaded the sample into the newest machine, a high-sensitivity sequencer capable of pulling genetic information from material once thought unusable. Hours passed. The machine hummed. Data trickled across the screen in fragmented lines. The analyst leaned closer. The degraded trace was giving up something. Bits of a profile, faint but real, broken but salvageable. It wasn't a full DNA match. Not yet. But it was enough to recognize one truth. The sample didn't belong to Alyssa Ward. It belonged to someone else, someone male, someone unknown. And for the first time in 23 years, the cold case stirred. The analyst flagged the result. Detectives reopened the file. And the name Alyssa Ward flickered back onto investigative monitors like a ghost reaching out from the past. That tiny smear of genetic material, the trace everyone ignored, had just whispered a message loud enough to shatter decades of silence. When they pushed the partial profile through the state database, no hit returned. But the system did something unexpected. It found a familial connection, a genetic echo pointing to a line, a bloodline, a surname investigators hadn't encountered before. And just like that, the story of Alyssa's disappearance shifted, cracked open, and exposed a path investigators had never imagined. The DNA twist stunned the room. But what it led to, what it hinted at, would plunge the case into a deeper, darker mystery than anyone ever predicted. The moment the familial match appeared on the lab monitor, a strange silence fell over the room. A silence not of calm, but of recognition. The kind detectives feel when the air itself shifts, when the past reaches out and drags its fingernails across the present. The surname highlighted on the screen glowed like a warning flare. Keller. A name that meant nothing to the old case files, nothing to the town's memory, nothing to Alyssa's circle of friends or acquaintances. But the system was certain. The degraded trace belonged to someone genetically tied to the Keller family line. Not a direct match, not enough to handcuff anyone, but enough to say, someone from this blood was there that night, someone close enough to leave a microscopic shadow behind. It wasn't proof, but it was a crack. And cold cases don't unfreeze quietly. They split open with a sound that shakes everything around them. The new lead detective, Jordan Hale, stared at the name with the kind of focus that burns. He wasn't part of the 1998 team. He hadn't grown up hearing Alyssa's name whispered like a curse. To him, the case wasn't nostalgia or regret. It was a riddle waiting to bleed. Hale requested every document connected to the Keller family. Property records, arrest logs, census data, death certificates, anything with a trace of the name. And within hours, a pattern emerged. The Kellers had passed through northern Florida like ghosts, never staying in one county long enough to plant roots. A trail of temporary addresses, seasonal jobs, and blank spaces where information should have been. They moved like people who didn't want to be found. One name stood out among them. Evan Keller, 39 years old in 1998, working as a traveling mechanic for a chain of roadside repair services that serviced Florida's highways. No convictions, no fingerprints in the system, no fixed address after 2002. It was as if he evaporated. One moment a man with a job and a record of employment, The next, a shadow folding back into the dark. Hale felt the weight of it instantly. A mechanic working the highways, a girl stranded on the roadside, a vanishing man. Too neat, too sharp, too aligned to be coincidence. Yet the old reports never mentioned him. No witness had ever brought up his name. No dispatcher recalled seeing his vehicle. No co-worker came forward. If Evan Keller crossed paths with Alyssa, it happened in total silence. And silence is the first language of predators. Hale decided to retrace the route Alyssa drove on the night she disappeared, not through reports, but with his own eyes. He took the old highway at dusk, following the same curve of asphalt as the sun blur into the tree line. The road still felt wrong. Heavy, watchful, with the air carrying that same sticky Florida heat described in the old notes. Palmettos leaned over the shoulder like hunched silhouettes, the sky pressed down like a lid. As Hale passed the spot where her car had been found, he slowed. The woods were dense there, thicker than he expected, the kind of dense that swallows sound, swallows movement, swallows people. He stepped out, listening to the cicadas crackle in the branches. He imagined Alyssa standing here, headlights cutting through the dark, frustration or fear tightening her breath. Did she hear footsteps? A voice? A car rolling to a stop behind her. He scanned the tree line with a flashlight, and that's when he saw it. Something metallic on the ground, half buried under leaves. Not from 1998, but recent. A rusted piece of scrap with faded lettering. A logo barely readable. Keller & Sons Auto Services. It could have been dropped by anyone, any time, but in the context of the new DNA lead, it felt like the forest itself was coughing up a forgotten truth. Hale bagged it and returned to the station, mind racing. But he knew a piece of metal wasn't evidence. It was suggestion. And suggestions don't solve cold cases, people do. He expanded the search into the Keller family tree. Relatives appeared like scattered footprints. A younger brother with a record for petty theft, a cousin arrested in Alabama for assault, a nephew flagged for drug distribution. None close enough to match the genetic markers from the sample, none living anywhere near the disappearance in 1998. But the deeper Hale dug, the stranger it became. Every record tied to Evan Keller ended abruptly. No driver's license renewals, no tax filings, no job applications, no death certificate. Nothing. As if the earth had opened and swallowed him whole. The only thing Hale found was a single employment file showing Keller's last known job, a temporary mechanic position at a service shop located 20 miles from the stretch of road where Alyssa vanished. The notation next to his name read, "Left without notice on August 14th, 1998. 2 days after Alyssa disappeared. A detail too sharp to ignore. Hale tracked down the shop's former owner, an old man named Dempsey, who answered the door with wary eyes. At the mention of Keller, the man stiffened, gaze flicking toward the overgrown backyard as if expecting a memory to crawl out of the weeds. "Evan?" Dempsey muttered. "Yeah, I remember him. Quiet. Came in, did his work, didn't cause trouble. But the day he left, that was strange." Hale leaned forward. "Strange how?" Dempsey hesitated. Took a breath. He came in before sunrise, walked straight to his locker, didn't say a word, just emptied it. I asked if everything was all right. He said he had to go, voice shaking, like someone who hadn't slept. He wouldn't look at me, and when he walked out, he left his key on the counter. Didn't wait for a paycheck. Didn't explain a damn thing. The old man rubbed his hands together, eyes distant. Now that you mention it, he had scratches on his forearm. Fresh ones, like he'd run through brush or something. Hale wrote fast, pulse steady but strong. "You ever see him again?" "No," Dempsey answered. And I didn't want to. As Hale walked back to his car, he felt the rhythm of the case shifting, something tightening, something closing. The name Keller wasn't just a lead. It was a fracture line running straight through the mystery of 1998. But if Evan was connected to the disappearance, the evidence hadn't been enough to catch him. Not then. Maybe not ever. And yet, Hale couldn't shake the question. Why did the DNA match tie to the family, but not to Evan himself? If the sample belonged to a Keller, and if Evan had fled, then who, exactly, had been at Alyssa's car? A brother? A cousin? A son? The possibilities swirled like dark water. He needed answers from the family itself. But contacting them wasn't easy. Most listed addresses were abandoned trailers, missing houses, or lots swallowed by vegetation. Those who did answer the phone refused to talk, hanging up the moment Evan's name was mentioned. The Kellers weren't just elusive. They were protective, insular, trained by years of movement and mistrust. Hale realized he wasn't dealing with one man. He was dealing with a family that lived in the margins of the map. Then came the first real break. A public records trace revealed a woman named Jeanette Keller, Evan's sister, living in a small town south of Jacksonville. No criminal record, no known aliases. A stable address. Hale drove out that same evening, pulling up to a pale blue house with a sagging porch and a wind chime that clattered in the humid breeze. Jeanette opened the door with a softness that didn't match anything Hale expected. Her eyes were tired but kind, the eyes of someone who had spent years trying not to look backward. When Hale showed his badge, she didn't flinch. When he asked about Evan, her shoulders sank, as if she'd been carrying his name like a stone. "He's gone," she said quietly, "and I don't know where. When did you last see him?" Hale pressed. She closed her eyes. "August, 1998. The words drifted into the air like an echo from another lifetime. "He came to me," she continued, voice trembling. "Middle of the night. I didn't know he was coming. He knocked on my window, not the door. He looked terrified, dirty, like he'd been running through the woods. I asked what happened. He said he couldn't stay. He told me he made a mistake. A terrible one. He didn't explain. I tried to stop him, but he left before sunrise. And that was the last time I ever saw my brother." Hale asked the question carefully. "Did he say anyone's name? Mention anyone? A girl?" Jeanette swallowed hard. "No, but he kept looking over his shoulder, like someone was after him. Or like he couldn't live with what he'd done." Hale felt the ground shift beneath him. Then Jeanette added something strange, something that wrapped itself around Hale's thoughts like a tightening vine. "That night," she whispered, "he wasn't alone." A pause. "There was someone with him. A young man. Maybe 19. Maybe 20. I didn't know him. He didn't speak. He stood by the car, watching. And when they left, he looked straight at me, like he wanted me to remember him." Hale's pulse pounded once, heavy and cold. "Do you know his name?" he asked. Jeanette shook her head. "But I know one thing," she said. "He was family." And in that moment, Hale realized the truth. The DNA trace didn't belong to Evan Keller. It belonged to the one who was with him. The moment Jeanette spoke those words, "he was family," the room seemed to shrink around Hale, pulling him into a pressure chamber where every second throbbed with implication. The air thickened. The clock on the wall ticked louder. Because this wasn't just a new lead. This was a fracture in the timeline, a crack that revealed something the original investigation had never considered. The disappearance of Alyssa Ward wasn't the work of a lone stranger passing through the wrong stretch of highway. It was something woven into the blood of a family that lived in shadows. Something inherited, shared, protected. Hale steadied himself, kept his voice calm. "This young man, can you describe him?" Jeanette folded her hands, eyes drifting as she tried to drag pieces of memory out of the darkness. "Tall," she murmured. "Taller than Evan. Skinny. Nervous. He kept adjusting the sleeves of his jacket, like he was hiding something. Or hiding himself." She paused, brow furrowing. His hair was dark. His eyes were darker. And he didn't say a word. But the way he looked at Evan, it was like he was waiting for direction. His age, Hale prekazt. 19, 20, no older. And you're certain he was family? Jeanette didn't hesitate. The way they moved, the way they operated. I grew up in the Keller household. I know my family's energy. I know the things that aren't spoken. She exhaled shakily. That boy was ours. Hale kept his expression neutral, but the inside of his chest tightened. A 19 to 20-year-old male relative of Evan would have been the right age to leave that degraded trace found in Alyssa's car. Young enough to fit the profile, old enough to commit something violent, and hidden enough to slip past every paper trail the state ever kept. He asked one last question. Jeanette, did Evan say anything about why this young man was with him? Her eyes lowered. Only once, as they were leaving. Evan put a hand on his shoulder and said, "We're in this together now." That's the last thing I heard before they drove away. The words curled around Hale like a cold finger. We're in this together now. Not an apology, not an explanation. A pact, a bond forged in fear or guilt. He thanked Jeanette, promised confidentiality, promised updates, then stepped out into the humid Florida dusk. The sky had bruised itself into a deep purple. Something metallic hummed faintly in the air. The world felt unsteady, as if the case itself was trying to warn him. This wasn't simply reopening. It was waking up. He sat in the driver's seat, staring through the windshield. A new question throbbed in his mind. Not who is the second Keller, but why had he never surfaced? Why was he a ghost in every database? Why was there no birth record, no school enrollment, no employment history? A 19-year-old man in 1998 should have left footprints. Yet this one stood in the backyard of memory like a silhouette, half-formed, unregistered, unnamed. Haller drove back to the station with sirens silent but adrenaline pounding. He gathered every Keller family document again, spreading them across the table like a map of missing pieces. He hunted for anomalies, missing census entries, gaps in household lists, foster placements, unrecorded children. And then he found it. A single line buried in a county ledger from 1980, a birth registered under the Keller name, but never updated. No first name, no listed father. Mother, S. Keller. Notes, home birth, paperwork incomplete. It was a ghost record, the type created when someone wanted to file just enough information to keep questions away, but not enough to invite scrutiny. No follow-up, no amendments, no trace of the child later. But the date lined up. The age lined up. The blankness called out like a whisper from the past. Hale circled it, hard. If the unnamed Keller child survived into adulthood, and if he was the silent boy who left Jeanette's house with Evan, then this might be the first and only document tying him to existence. But there was no name to pursue, no physical description, only a timestamp and a mother's initial. S. Hale pulled the Keller family tree again. Only one woman in the 1980s matched that initial. Sharon Keller, Evan's cousin. Arrested once for petty theft. Last known address, somewhere near the Georgia border. No current listing. No recent identification on file. Another ghost. Hale felt irritation. No, determination. Flare in his blood. These people lived between the cracks of society, like they were born to escape paper trails. But cold cases don't bow to ghosts. They devour them. He pored through missing property records, defunct mailing addresses, defunct tax listings, and finally found something. Sharon Keller had once rented a room in a remote trailer park that burned down in 1996. No fatalities recorded, but the fire destroyed all tenant files, leaving only fragments behind. One fragment listed a dependent living with her. Gender, male, age, teen. No name provided. The puzzle sharpened. Sharon had a son, a shadow son. A son the state lost track of after the fire. A son who would have been 19 or 20 in 1998, a son who stood in Jeanette's backyard the night Evan fled. Hale whispered to this empty room. "You're the one who left DNA in Alyssa's car. You're the one she saw. You're the one we've been looking for." He didn't know the boy's name, but he knew his blood, and blood leaves trails. He contacted state genealogical analysts to build a predictive family tree model. Using the trace DNA, they could estimate possible identities. It wouldn't give a name, but it would narrow the pool. The analysts took the partial profile and cross-referenced it with public records, ancestry logs, and known Keller relatives. Hours turned into a day into 2. Then the call came. "We've narrowed it down," the analyst said. "Based on the markers, the unknown sample likely belongs to the male offspring of Sharon Keller. Estimated birth, 1979 to 1981. But there's more." Hale froze. "Go on." "According to our reconstruction, this individual has a distinctive genetic trait, a rare allele that only appears in one branch of the Keller line. That allele traces directly to Sharon's father, which means he's her biological son." Hale finished. "Yes, and here's the twist. We also detected a recessive variant that suggests a second familial tie. Evan may have been more than just the boy's companion that night. He may have been his uncle, or..." A pause. "His half-brother." The air thinned. Hale's pulse deepened. A half-brother would explain their bond, their silence, their mutual flight. A family secret wrapped inside another secret. "And there's something else," the analyst said. "This allele appears in another Keller relative. A woman named..." But the phone crackled. The line dropped. The connection died. "Static." Hale stared at the dead receiver. A glitch, or something else? He tried calling back. No answer. He emailed. No response. It was late. The lab was likely closed, but something about the timing made his stomach tighten. Something in the pattern felt wrong. He returned to the files. He zoomed in on the 1980 ghost birth record. Mother, Sharon Keller. And beside that entry was a second incomplete record. Same year, same county. Mother listed only as SK. No follow-up. No notes. No gender indicated. A second ghost. Or a duplicate. Or something more tangled. He printed the pages, pinning them on the board. Each detail looked like static until he stepped back and saw the larger image forming, shaky, blurred, but unmistakable. The Keller family wasn't just hiding a son. They were hiding a pattern. Hale checked his watch. Nearly midnight. But he couldn't let the trail cool. He drove to the old county where Sharon once lived, weaving through empty highways until he reached the ruins of the trailer park. The air smelled of ash, even decades later. Charred posts jutted from the earth like ribs. This place had been a home once. Now it was a graveyard of secrets. His flashlight skimmed over fragments of metal, broken glass, melted plastic. Then it hit something white. A piece of wall insulation, still intact. Spray-painted on it was a symbol. Jagged, sharp, like a slanted letter K carved into a circle. A family mark. A territory sign. He stepped closer. Another piece of rubble bore the same mark, this time accompanied by a date. 98. His breath stopped. The Kellers had returned here the year Alyssa vanished. He knelt, touching the burned wood. The night's humidity seemed to press down on him, whispering the truth. This wasn't a vanishing. It was a ritual. A pattern, a place they came back to after taking something, or someone. He stood abruptly, scanning the area. The trees around him swayed, branches clacking like bones. For a moment, he felt watched, not by a person, but by the past itself, awake and restless. He returned to his car, adrenaline cold in his veins. As he started the engine, his phone buzzed. A new email from the lab analyst. A single line. Found the name connected to the second allele. You need to see this in person. Do not contact the family until then. Below it, a name. Hale stared. The letters swam. His breath caught. Because the name wasn't Keller. It was Ward, Alyssa's last name. A genetic connection between the missing girl and the Keller family. A twist sharp enough to cut the entire case open. The name on the screen glowed like a fuse burning toward something explosive. Ward. Not Keller. Not a stranger. Not an anonymous thread drifting at the edge of the investigation. It was Alyssa's name. Her blood. Her lineage. A connection no one had ever considered. A genetic whisper that tied her family directly to the very people investigators once believed were nothing more than passing shadows on a lonely highway. Hale stared at the letters until they stopped looking like a word and started looking like an omen, a message buried in the DNA itself. Someone from the Keller bloodline and someone from the Ward bloodline shared a genetic overlap. Not enough to declare relation, but enough to say there was a crossing, a collision, a point where the two families touched. Somewhere in the past, somewhere in the dark. Hale drove straight to the lab in the grey early morning, the roads empty except for the occasional truck cutting through the mist. The building was half lit when he arrived, the hallway echoing with the hum of refrigeration units. The analyst, a thin, sleep-deprived figure named Kwan, greeted him with eyes that looked like they hadn't blinked in hours. She motioned him into the sequencing room, closed the door softly behind them, and placed a single folder on the table with the reverence of someone handling a loaded weapon. "There's something you need to understand before you read that," Kwan said quietly. "The allele match to the Ward line is faint. It's old, generations removed, but it's real." Hale kept his voice steady. "What does it mean?" "It means," she said, "that somewhere in the Ward family tree, maybe 70, 80, 100 years ago, someone had a child with someone from the Keller line. It's distant but still detectable. It doesn't imply anything criminal. But it does mean the families aren't separate branches. They share a root." The words settled into the silence like a stone thrown into still water. A shared root. A forgotten intersection. A blood tie that time erased, but DNA resurrected. Hale opened the folder. Inside was a family tree model, branching like lightning across a page. 2 surnames, Ward and Keller, lay at opposite ends, yet a thin dotted line connected them through a single ancestor labeled only as unknown female, circa 1910 to 1920. A woman whose name and story were lost to history, but whose genes still echoed in the living. Kwan spoke again. "This connection doesn't mean the unknown male wasn't involved in Alyssa's disappearance, but it does mean he might not have been a stranger to her. Not genetically, anyway. Very distant, but still connected." Hale closed the file, mind racing like a storm system building strength. It wasn't proof, but it opened the door to a possibility no one had dared to imagine. Alyssa's disappearance wasn't just a random act of violence. It might have been an intersection of bloodlines, a collision rooted in history, a secret tangled in the DNA of 2 families who had no idea their stories were entwined. But he needed something practical. A name, a place, a direction. Kwan pulled up the predictive model on the monitor. A list of potential identities flickered on the screen, none confirmed, but all genetically feasible. And one stood out. One that tightened Hale's grip on the edge of the table. Jace Keller, born circa 1980, son of Sharon Keller. Known to the community only as the Boy. No school enrollment, no medical records, no official documentation after 1996. Presumed transient, presumed alive. It was the ghost born of fire. The unnamed presence in Jeanette's backyard. The shadow who walked beside Evan in the middle of the night, and now he had a name. Hale requested every scrap of information connected to the burned trailer park, hoping for something, anything, that could anchor Jace in reality. But the details were thin, thinner than he expected. A few witness statements about a woman living with a quiet son. A neighbor recalling a boy who rarely spoke. A vague recollection of him fixing broken bikes for neighborhood kids before disappearing into the woods whenever strangers approached. A child existing in the margins, raised in silence, trained to vanish. Hale drove to the county archives. He scanned boxes of microfilm until the hours blurred. And there, buried in an old newspaper clipping from 1993, he found a photograph. Grainy, low contrast, but unmistakable. A teenage boy with hollow eyes standing beside Sharon Keller. The caption read, "Local mom fights eviction ruling. No name given for the child." But the eyes matched the description. Dark, unreadable, observing the camera with a wary intelligence. Hale printed the image and slipped it into the case file. A face to match the DNA. A ghost brought into focus. He pushed further. Where did Sharon go after the fire? Where did Jace go? Why did no one report them missing? The trail was faint, but a rental agreement surfaced from 1997. Sharon signed for a small cottage outside Quincy, a place far from the highway, far from prying eyes. Hale drove there next, following a gravel road cut through dense brush. The cottage was abandoned, swallowed by vines and warped by years of rain. The porch sagged, the windows were boarded, and the roof had partially collapsed. But something about it felt wrong in the way empty places sometimes do. Like it had been left in a hurry, not gradually decayed. Hale stepped inside. The air was stale, tinged with the smell of mold and something older. The living room held nothing but dust. But the kitchen, there were marks on the walls, faint scratches near the baseboards. He knelt, running his fingers over them. Not animal marks, something deliberate. Vertical lines etched in groups of 5. Counted together, there were dozens. Like someone keeping track of days, or punishments, or visitors. He felt a cold shiver crawl along his spine. He moved deeper into the house until he reached a small room in the back. The door was ajar. A thin beam of light slid across the floor, illuminating a single object sitting upright in the corner. A tiny wooden horse, hand-carved. Simple, rough around the edges. The kind of object made by someone who had nothing but time and a pocket knife. Hale picked it up, turned it over. On the underside, carved with shaky precision, was a single initial. J. Jace. He set the horse down and scanned the room. No bedding, no personal belongings, no signs of a normal child's presence, just the wooden horse, the scratches on the walls, the silence of a boy raised in confinement. A soft crunch came from behind him. Hale spun, hand instinctively reaching for his holster. But it was only a fox slipping through the doorway, startled by his presence. Still, Hale's pulse hammered. Something about the house felt watched, as if the ghosts of 1998 still lingered like smoke in the corners. He left after photographing the interior, breathing the night air as though surfacing from deep water. The sky above the tree line flickered with distant lightning, a storm forming, the kind that made everything feel electric, charged, alive. Back at the station, Hale spread the photos across the board. Jeanette's testimony, the burned trailer park symbols, the wooden horse, the DNA lineage. The lines between Keller and Ward families tangled like a snare. He pinned a photo of Alyssa at the top, her smile now looking like a question she didn't know she was asking. And then he pinned the picture of the boy beside it, the teenage shadow of Jace Keller. 2 faces separated by decades but connected by blood, and maybe by fate. Hale replayed the possibilities. What if Alyssa's disappearance wasn't random? What if she had encountered not a stranger, but someone who felt drawn to her for reasons he couldn't articulate? Someone whose life had been spent in isolation, raised under the weight of family secrets he neither understood nor controlled. A boy raised in confinement meeting a girl raised in freedom. 2 branches of the same tree colliding on a highway under a moonlit sky. It wasn't motive, but it was a seed. He continued digging. And in an old adoption registry, misfiled and forgotten, he found something chilling. Sharon Keller had attempted to put a child up for adoption in 1985. She withdrew the request after a single interview. The report noted emotional distress, uncooperative behavior, and a chilling final note from the social worker. Child exhibits signs of isolation and attachment confusion. Mother refuses further evaluation. Case closed at client's insistence. If that child was Jace, his entire life had been shaped by instability, secrecy, and the fear of being taken away. A boy raised to hide. A boy raised to obey. A boy whose world was so small that contact with anyone outside the family, especially someone like Alyssa, might have triggered something unpredictable. But Hale still needed the missing link. Where was Jace now? He worked through employment logs, police encounters, hospital admissions. Nothing. The boy had done what the Kellers did best. Vanished. But then something shifted. Hale expanded the search into nearby counties, looking for homeless shelters, mental health intakes, itinerant worker records, any place a person without identity might surface. And in a shelter log from 2004, he found it. A handwritten entry, J.K., male, approx. 24, no ID, scar over left eyebrow, quiet, stayed 3 nights. Scar, silent, no ID, a match echoing through time. But the shelter worker noted one more thing. Talked in his sleep, said a name. Evan. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Hale read it. Years after the disappearance, after the flight, after the symbols left on burned ruins, Jace was still whispering his half-brother's name like a ghost calling through nightmares. Hale leaned back, breath unsteady. The storm outside cracked with thunder. This was no longer a cold trail. It was warm, too warm, and as lightning split the sky, illuminating the photos pinned to his board, one thing became unmistakably clear. Finding Jace Keller would be the key to uncovering what really happened to Alyssa Ward. But finding him might also mean stepping into the same darkness that swallowed her whole. Because people raised in secrets don't live in the daylight. They wait, they watch, and when the past comes for them, they run. The storm rolled through the night like a warning, hurling sheets of rain against the station windows as Hale mapped the next steps. The shelter log from 2004 was the first physical proof that Jace Keller existed beyond rumor, beyond speculation, beyond the ashes of the burned trailer park. But it was also a reminder. He knew how to disappear. He'd learned it as a child, perfected it as a teenager, weaponized it as an adult. Tracking him wouldn't be a matter of following a trail. It would be a matter of spotting the faint disturbances left behind by someone who moved like a shadow. Hale printed out the shelter record and pinned it beside the photo of the teenage Jace. He studied them together, 2 fragments separated by 11 years. Same initials, same habits, same silence, same faint orbit around Evan Keller's name. And then he noticed something else. The scar over the left eyebrow. The teenage photo showed no scar, meaning the injury occurred sometime between 1993 and 2004, meaning something happened, something violent enough to leave a permanent mark on someone already built on fractures. He zoomed in on the photo. The eyes, dark, wary, restless, seemed to cut through decades. Eyes that didn't trust the world. Eyes that might have watched Alyssa Ward through the trees on a humid August night. Eyes that might have seen her stranded on the shoulder, glowing in the headlights like something fragile, something breakable. Hale turned away, letting the theory settle without acting on it. Professional distance? But the truth was climbing into his thoughts like ivy. If Jace approached Alyssa that night, was it curiosity? Fear? Desperation? Or something darker, shaped by a lifetime of isolation? He couldn't answer that yet, but he knew where to start. He contacted the shelter directly. An older volunteer named Margaret picked up. Her voice carried the warmth of someone who had seen too many broken souls pass through her doors and loved them anyway. When Hale mentioned the 2004 entry, she paused. "I remember most of the people who stay longer than a night," she said. "But this one, J.K., he barely spoke. Ate quietly. slept curled up like someone expecting to be kicked. I tried to get his name, but he just whispered Jay. Or maybe it was Jace. Hard to tell. He was skittish, like a deer that had learned humans mean pain. Do you remember anything else? Hale asked. A long inhale. He had this way of watching the exits, not the people. The exits. Every few minutes he'd glance at the doors like he needed to plan a way out. Like he didn't trust he'd be allowed to stay. Did he say where he was headed? No, but he left behind something. Margaret rustled through papers. A small sketchbook. Nothing written, just drawings. Primitive, but detailed in a strange way. She scanned the pages and emailed them to Hale. When the images arrived, they punched the air from Hale's lungs. Page after page filled the screen. Dark trees, railroad tracks, empty cabins, derelict sheds. Always empty. Always lonely. But on the last page, the lines shifted. Sharper, etched with a trembling hand. A car on a shoulder. Hazards blinking. A girl standing beside it, head turned toward something unseen in the trees. Alyssa's last known position, drawn from memory, drawn by someone who was there. The storm outside cracked with thunder. Hale stared at the sketch for a long, still moment, feeling the cold edge of inevitability slice through him. This wasn't speculation anymore. This wasn't theory. Jace Keller had been present that night. Whether he acted alone or followed Evan, whether he meant harm or panicked or something worse, he was tied to Alyssa's disappearance by more than DNA, by witness, by memory, by the fear carved into every line of his sketch. Hale printed the images and added them to the board. They formed a constellation of intent, signals flashing through time. A boy raised in shadows watches a girl stranded on a highway. A half-brother flees in the night. A family survives on secrecy. And Alyssa Ward becomes the axis around which all of them spin. But there were still pieces missing. Why did they approach her? Why did they flee? And what happened in the minutes after her car stalled? To answer that, Hale needed insight into the Keller family dynamic, the kind of insight not found in birth records or arrest logs. He needed someone who'd lived among them. That meant returning to Jeanette. He drove back to her house at dawn. The storm had passed, leaving puddles gleaming like pools of mercury. Jeanette opened the door with the same tired eyes, but this time she looked as if she'd been expecting him. "You found something," she said, stepping aside. Hale laid the sketchbook printouts on her table. She froze, staring at the drawing of the girl by the roadway. Her breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her mouth. "That's her," she whispered. "That's the girl from the news, from the posters, drawn by someone who saw her." Hale said quietly. Jeanette sank into a chair, trembling. "Jace, I always suspected he was with Evan that night, but I never imagined he watched her." "Why was he with Evan in the first place?" Hale asked. What was their relationship really like? Jeanette's eyes drifted, memories resurfacing like bruises. "Evan wasn't violent," she said slowly. "But he was controlling. Not cruel, just rigid. He believed the Keller family was abandoned by the world. That everyone outside meant danger. He taught Jace to fear strangers. Taught him to see the world as a threat." "Did he ever mention Alyssa? Or anyone like her?" Jeanette shook her head. "But Jace, he was different. Gentle, curious, quiet. He wasn't made for the life he was forced into. Evan kept him close. Too close. Like he was trying to keep him from being corrupted by anything good." Haley leaned forward. "Do you think Jace could hurt someone?" A long pause. Her voice cracked. "I think Jace could panic. I think he could follow. I think he could obey. But hurt someone?" Her eyes glistened. "I don't know." The uncertainty cut deeper than a confession. Jeanette continued. "After that night, Evan was changed, shaken. But Jace looked empty, like someone had taken something from him, or like he'd seen something he couldn't understand." "What did Evan say when they left?" "That they were heading north. somewhere quiet, somewhere no one would find them. She hesitated. There was a cabin. Our grandfather's old hunting cabin in the Apalachicola forest. They used to go there when they wanted to disappear. Hale's pulse sharpened. "Do you know where it is?" She nodded, slowly, as if releasing a secret that had been trapped behind her ribs for decades. She scribbled a set of coordinates on a scrap of paper and handed it to him. As he left, she called after him. "Detective, if you find Jace, please remember he was a child raised by darkness. Don't treat him like the darkness itself." Hale didn't answer. He couldn't promise anything. The drive to Apalachicola took him through miles of untouched forest, where towering pines wove a canopy that blocked the sun, and the road narrowed until it felt like he was steering into a tunnel carved from the wilderness itself. He navigated by instinct and coordinates, eventually finding a dirt track half hidden beneath fallen branches. He followed it until the trees thinned and a clearing emerged. Silent, overgrown, forgotten. At the far edge stood the cabin, old, rotting, leaning like a wounded animal. Hale stepped out of the car, scanning the tree line. The air was thick with cicadas. The forest watched him with breathless stillness. He approached slowly, footsteps muffled by damp soil. The cabin's door hung crookedly. He nudged it open with his flashlight. Inside, the darkness felt alive. Dust coated the floor. Cobwebs clung to the corners. But something caught his eye immediately. Footprints in the grime. Fresh ones. Human. Bare. Someone had been here recently. His pulse quickened. He swept the flashlight across the room. A makeshift bed. A pile of blankets. An old lantern. And on the far wall, carved deep into the wood, were marks, hundreds of them. Vertical lines etched in clusters, identical to those in the Quincy cottage. Jace had been here. Maybe still was. Hale stepped deeper, breath controlled, hand on his holster. The cabin creaked quietly, like it was exhaling after decades of holding its breath. Then he saw something tucked under the blankets. A scrap of paper. He lifted it with gloved fingers. A drawing. The same girl. Alyssa. Only this time, her face was different. Her eyes were closed. Her body was slumped. And beside her stood a figure. Tall, thin, head down, hands shaking. Jace. Hale's stomach twisted. The drawing wasn't a confession. It was a memory. A moment etched in graphite by someone who couldn't forget what he'd seen, or what he'd done. A floorboard creaked behind him. Hale spun. A shadow moved at the doorway. Tall, thin, barefoot. Watching him with dark, trembling eyes. Jace Keller. Alive, silent, and staring at the detective like a ghost meeting the living for the first time. For a long, breathless moment, neither of them moved. Hale felt the weight of the forest pressing against the cabin walls, the muffled roar of cicadas swelling like static, the smell of damp wood curling into his lungs. Jace Keller stood framed by the doorway, thin as a shadow, shoulders hunched, bare feet planted on the warped boards. His hair hung in tangled strands. His clothes were worn, torn, streaked with dirt. And his eyes, those dark, hollow eyes, held no hostility, no aggression, just a deep, animal fear, the kind bred in people who have spent their entire lives running from things they don't understand. Hale kept his hands visible, steady, low. "Jace," he said softly, voice like a warning wrapped in calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." Jace flinched. Just the sound of his own name seemed to ripple through him like shock. His breath hitched, shallow and quick. His gaze darted between Hale's face and the exit behind him. Fight? Flight? Freeze? Hale recognized the crossroads instantly. He lifted one hand, palm outward, slow, controlled. "I know you've been hiding. I know you're scared. But I'm here because I need to understand what happened that night. The night Alyssa disappeared." The name struck him like a blow. Jace recoiled, spine arching subtly, as if bracing for something painful. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Then he took a step back, not to flee, but to retreat deeper into the cabin, into shadow, like a wounded creature unsure of where safety lived. Hale followed at a careful distance. "You drew her," he murmured. "In the shelters, in the cottage. Here. You've been carrying that night with you for years." Jace backed into the corner, arms tight against his chest. His fingernails scraped his skin in a nervous, repetitive pattern. Not attacking, self-soothing. A behavior Hale knew well from trauma cases. This wasn't a predator. This was a survivor trapped in a memory that wouldn't release him. "You were there," Hale continued. "I know you were." Jace closed his eyes. And for the first time, Hale saw tears trembling at the edges. Brittle, silent, decades old. "You're not in trouble," Hale said. "I'm not here to take you away. I'm here to listen." A long, trembling breath escaped Jace's mouth. Then he opened his eyes and pointed, slow, deliberate, toward the floor, toward the drawing Hale had found beneath the blankets. Hale knelt, placing the drawing between them like an offering. "Tell me," he whispered. Jace's hand shook as he reached out. His fingertip hovered over the sketched image of Alyssa, the closed eyes, the slumped posture, the shadow of a figure beside her. Then he touched his own drawn silhouette. His voice came out barely audible, brittle like cracking glass. "Not her." The words were so faint, Hale wondered if he imagined them. Jace swallowed hard, trying again. "Not me." Hale's heart hammered once, sharp and cold. "Jace, if it wasn't you, then who?" Jace's breathing grew ragged. He pressed a hand to his forehead, shaking his head violently, as if fighting something inside. Then he pointed toward the door, toward the forest. Not an answer. A direction. "Someone else was there?" Hale asked. Jace nodded. "Was it Evan?" Jace's reaction was instant. He jerked backward, hitting the wall with a soft thud. His face twisted in pain, memory, guilt. He shook his head. Once. Twice. Then he pressed both palms flat against his temples. Hale understood. Evan wasn't the one who approached her. A shudder ran through Jace's body. "No," he whispered. Hale's breath caught. Then who? Who had been with them that night? Who else had the Kellers kept hidden? He moved cautiously closer. Jace. There was a second DNA profile in the car. Not Alyssa's, not Evan's, not yours. His voice dropped to a low, steady tone. "Someone else from your family was there. I need you to help me find them." But Jace seemed unable, or unwilling, to speak further. Instead, he crouched and traced a shape on the dusty floor using his fingertip. A circle. Then a line through it. Then another. A symbol Hale recognized instantly, the same crude emblem found at the burned trailer park. The Keller mark. "You were with someone who used this symbol?" Hale asked. Jace nodded. "Who?" His breath trembled. He drew another line, another circle, the symbol repeated, expanding outward like a constellation, a pattern, a group, a family. And suddenly Hale understood. The Keller bloodline wasn't just biology. It was an ideology, a belief system. A closed world built on secrecy, fear, and isolation. A world where leaving meant betrayal. A world where outsiders were threats. A world where mistakes demanded obedience. And someone in that world had seen Alyssa. The truth gathered around Hale like a rising tide. "Jace," he said slowly, "were there more of you that night?" Jace didn't answer. He didn't need to. The fear in his eyes said enough. Before Hale could speak again, a branch cracked outside. Loud, deliberate. Jace froze, his face drained of color. He backed deeper into the cabin, eyes fixed on the doorway behind Hale. Someone else was out there. Hale rose, every instinct sharpening like a blade. He moved to the doorframe and peered out. The clearing was silent. The trees stood motionless. But something had changed. An unfamiliar track in the mud, partially washed by the storm. Wider stride than Jace. Deeper. Fresh. A grown man's footprint. Hale stepped outside, scanning the tree line. The forest hummed with a low, oppressive quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that precedes violence. He returned to the cabin. Jace, listen to me. We need to go. It's not safe. But Jace was gone, vanished into the darkness at the back of the cabin, where a small hatch lay open beneath a collapsed shelf. A crawl space leading into the forest floor. Hale cursed under his breath. The boy had slipped away like smoke. He stepped outside again, sweeping the area with his flashlight. The beams carved through the trees, slicing shadows apart. But the forest swallowed everything. No movement, no sound, no sign of Jace. Until Hale noticed something nailed to a tree at the edge of the clearing. A piece of wood, carved with the Keller symbol, fresh. The bark beneath it was still damp. The wood was recently cut, and beneath the symbol, etched in uneven lines, was a single word. Enough! A warning, a message, or a vow. Hale took a step back, pulse heavy. The forest felt alive now, breathing around him, bristling with unseen eyes. Who else was out here? And what did they want with Jace? Or with him? He returned to his car, gripping the wheel as thunder rumbled again in the distance. The engine rumbled to life. Headlights pierced the dark. He drove fast, scanning the roadside for movement, desperate to spot the thin silhouette of the boy slipping through the trees. But Jace Keller was gone, swallowed by the same wilderness that had hidden him for decades. As Hale reached the main road, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No name, only 3 words. He's not alone. Hale's breath stalled. A second message followed. Come to the river. A location pinged on his map. Farther north, deeper into the forest, along an abandoned logging route. A place no one went willingly. A trap? A cry for help? Or something in between? Hale turned the wheel sharply, gravel spitting beneath his tires. He headed toward the river, adrenaline tightening every muscle, instinct screaming that whatever waited for him, there had been decades in the making. And as the forest grew denser, darker, heavier, he sensed the truth rising like a shadow. This wasn't just about Jace. It wasn't just about Evan. It wasn't even just about Alyssa. The Keller family had been hiding more than secrets. They'd been hiding someone capable of orchestrating all of this, someone who had been watching, someone who had been waiting, someone still alive, and the forest ahead felt like it was preparing to introduce them. The drive toward the river felt like threading a needle through darkness. The trees pressed closer with every mile, their silhouettes arching overhead like a cathedral built from shadow and bone. The logging path grew narrow, uneven, littered with branches that cracked under the tires. Hale tightened his grip on the wheel, his jaw clenched, his pulse thudding like a warning drumbeat. Somewhere ahead, beyond the tangled brush and the rising mist, someone waited for him. Someone who sent a message without a name. Someone who knew the case, the forest, the history. Someone moving with purpose. As he approached the river's edge, the headlights caught the glint of water, a slow, glassy surface shifting under the moonlight. The air felt colder here, carrying the metallic scent of wet soil and something older, something untouched. Hale killed the engine, stepped out and listened. Nothing. Not even insects. Just the river sliding past like a vein bleeding through the forest. He scanned the area with his flashlight. The beam cut through the fog, illuminating tire tracks leading down to a patch of flattened reeds. Fresh. Someone else had arrived not long before him. Maybe minutes, maybe moments. Hale crouched, touching one of the tracks. Still damp. He rose quickly, hand hovering near his holster. A twig snapped behind him. Hale spun, light slicing through the trees. A figure stepped out of the mist. Tall, broad-shouldered, hooded, standing with a confidence Jace never had. The stranger moved like someone comfortable in the dark, someone used to stalking the edges of civilization. Hale steadied himself, flashlight steady, voice firm. "Show me your hands." The figure obeyed with surprising calm, lifting both hands slowly, palms out. But the gesture felt rehearsed, intentional, as if he wanted Hale to see he wasn't armed, as if he needed him to listen. "You're Hale," the man said. His voice was low, gravelly, shaped by years of cigarettes or wilderness or both. The detective, the one digging where others stopped. "Who are you?" The man exhaled, a long breath dissolving into the night air. Someone who's been waiting a long time for someone like you. He lowered his hands but kept them visible. And someone who can tell you the truth about the night that girl disappeared. Hale's heart rate spiked. Alyssa Ward? The man nodded. Then start talking. But instead of answering, the stranger reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Hale stiffened, hand on his weapon. It's okay. The man murmured. Just a note. I found it. It's from him. From who? The man extended the paper at arm's length. Hale approached carefully, took it, unfolded it beneath the flashlight beam. Inside, written in shaky, uneven handwriting, were 3 words. I didn't mean to. Hale recognized the handwriting instantly. Jace. His chest tightened. Where did you find this? The stranger pointed toward the trees. Caught on a branch near the cabin. He dropped it when he ran. Hale studied the man again. His posture, his voice, the strange sorrow in his eyes. Why are you following him? Who are you to him? The stranger hesitated. For the first time, a flicker of vulnerability crossed his features. I'm someone who knew his mother, he said quietly. Someone who knew Sharon before everything fell apart. Before the fire. Before Evan took control of that boy's life. Hale's pulse kicked. Tell me your name. The man shook his head. Names complicate things. What you need is the story. Hale kept the flashlight fixed on him. Why should I trust anything you say? Because, the man replied, stepping closer into the beam. I'm the only person who knows what the Kellers were hiding long before that night on the highway, and you're not going to find the truth unless you understand what Jace was born into. Hale let the silence stretch, measuring the weight of the moment. The river murmured in the background like a restless witness. Talk, Hale said. The stranger inhaled, squared his shoulders, and began. You're looking at Jace like he's the beginning of the story, he said, voice steady. But he isn't. He's the end result of something that started generations ago. The Kellers were never a normal family. Not in the way you think. They drifted, isolated themselves, taught their children that the outside world was poison. They lived by a set of rules older than any of us can trace. Traditions passed down from a woman whose name no one remembers, from some rural clan long dissolved. Hale listened, skeptical but attentive. The symbol you've seen carved around their places, that wasn't meant to scare people. It was a mark, a boundary line. It meant the land was theirs. It meant outsiders shouldn't cross. And Alyssa crossed it? Hal asked. The stranger shook his head. Not intentionally, not physically, but the Kellers didn't think in literal borders. They thought in signs, omens. The night Alyssa stopped on that highway, Jace saw her first. He was ahead of Evan that night, wandering, looking for something he couldn't name. He saw her car, saw her lights, saw someone who didn't fit the world he'd been raised in. Did he approach her? Yes, the stranger said, but not to hurt her. Not at first. He was curious, drawn to her. She spoke to him. She asked if he needed help. His jaw tightened. She didn't know she was speaking to a boy who had never had a normal conversation with anyone outside his family. Hale steadied himself. Then what happened? The stranger's eyes darkened. Evan arrived. And Evan believed Alyssa seeing Jace was a threat to their way of life, to their secrecy, to the boy he'd raised to depend on him. He paused. Evan tried to force Jace back into the woods. Alyssa stepped between them. She said she could drive them somewhere safe. She offered help. Hale's stomach twisted, and Evan panicked. Evan did worse than panic. The stranger stared toward the river, as if replaying something he'd never want to see again. He grabbed her, dragged her. Jace tried to stop him. He grabbed her arm to pull her away, but what? Hale demanded. The stranger looked back at him. She fell, hit her head, hard. The world seemed to tilt. The river's sound grew louder, crashing inside Hale's ears. Alyssa died, Hale whispered. For a moment, the man said gently. It looked like she had. Hale felt the breath leave his lungs. Not an abduction, not a ritual, Not a murder planned in cold blood. A fall, a moment, a mistake. But the stranger wasn't finished. Evan told Jace they couldn't take her to a hospital. Said no one would believe them. Said the world outside would tear Jace away from him. So he made a decision. His voice dropped lower, harder. He took her deeper into the woods. Hale felt something cold sink into his bones. But she wasn't dead, the man continued. I know because I was there. Hale's eyes snapped to his. What? The stranger stepped closer, lowering his hood, and for the first time, Hale saw his face clearly. Older than Jace. Harsh features softened by guilt. Eyes that carried the weight of both witness and participant. I was part of the Keller circle once, he said. By blood, by obligation. They believed I would become one of them. But I left. I left the moment I realized what Evan had done. Hale stared at him, stunned. The stranger continued, voice thin. I saw Alyssa breathing. Barely. I tried to get Jace to help me move her, but Evan stopped us. He said she was dangerous, that she'd ruin everything, that her waking up would destroy the family. And Jace? Hale asked. The stranger's expression twisted. He was torn, confused. A child trying to follow two masters. Evan dragged him away, forced him to leave, and Jace, he obeyed. Hale felt the gravity of the truth settling like stone. You followed Evan and Jace that night? I followed, the man whispered. But I couldn't save her. She was gone by the time I returned. The air grew icy, heavy with implication. Gone? Hale said. As in missing. The stranger replied. Not dead. Not there. Just gone. The spot where Evan left her was empty. No body, no blood, nothing. Hale's mind raced. Alyssa wasn't murdered. She didn't vanish by abduction. She got up. Or someone found her. Or something else entirely occurred. Before he could speak, the stranger held up a hand. I don't know where she went. I don't know who took her. All I know is this. Jace has spent 27 years believing he killed her, believing he caused the fall, believing he was the reason Evan dragged him through the woods that night. And he didn't? Hale asked. The stranger shook his head. No, but whoever took her, whoever found her, they've stayed silent for decades. And the person who knows the truth isn't Evan, isn't Sharon, isn't me. He paused. It's Jace. Hale's breath sharpened. Then why didn't he tell anyone? The stranger took another step forward, voice dropping to a whisper. Because someone else was there that night. Someone Jace saw in the trees. And he's been running from that man ever since. Hale felt the world close in around him. Who? He asked. The stranger's voice cracked. My father. The words cut through the river's hush like a blade. And Detective Hale, he added, he's still alive. The words hung in the air like a noose tightening around the night. My father. He's still alive. Hale felt the earth tilt, the river's low murmur fading behind the rush of blood climbing into his ears. The stranger who'd stepped from the mist, this haunted man with shadows carved into his features, wasn't just a witness. He was a son. Another branch of the Keller line, a living fragment of a family that hid its roots deep beneath the soil. Hale's voice was steady, but every instinct inside him bristled. Who is your father? The man inhaled sharply, as if the act of speaking the name scraped against something raw inside him. His name is Elias Keller. Hale froze. The name hadn't appeared in any genealogical model, any record, any police report, any place where law and society documented existence. Elias Keller was a ghost. Yet here he was, suddenly casting a shadow so large it swallowed the entire case. The stranger continued, voice trembling with something between anger and dread. He was the one who raised Evan, controlled him, shaped him. Evan didn't raise Jace alone. He followed Elias's rules, his rituals, his paranoia. Everything Evan did, he learned. Hale let out a slow breath. Was Elias at the highway that night? The man nodded. He shouldn't have been. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the younger generation. But Elias is the kind of man who appears where the family fears him most. He prowls, watches, judges. Jace saw him? Hale asked. Jace saw his silhouette, the man answered. And once you see Elias once, you don't forget. He's the kind of presence that buries itself in your bones. The river wind shifted, as if recoiling from the name. Hale took a step closer. If Elias was there, why didn't anyone mention him? Not Evan, not Sharon, not even you! The stranger's eyes hardened. Because Elias made sure we didn't. He made sure none of us spoke his name. That's his rule. If anyone mentions him to outsiders, he punishes the family, cuts them off, hurts the ones they love. And if someone leaves, like I did, he hunts them. Hale felt a chill ripple down his spine. And you think he's hunting Jace now? The man's jaw tightened. Elias never lets go of anyone he thinks belongs to him. And Jace was his favorite. Not his blood, but his project. Hale felt the pieces shifting like plates beneath the earth. Explain. The stranger's face contorted with a pained memory. Elias saw Jace as a blank slate, a child with no name, no papers, no protections. He believed Jace could become the perfect heir, obedient, unseen, molded by the family's ways. Evan tried to keep Jace from becoming that, but Elias always had his hooks in him. And Alyssa? Hale asked quietly. Where does she fit? The stranger's eyes drifted toward the river, rippling under the moonlight like a sheet of fractured glass. Alyssa was the moment the Keller's world collided with the outside. Evan panicked. Jace froze. And Elias watched. Hale's stomach twisted. Watched what? The stranger's voice cracked. Watched Jace fail him. Watched Jace hesitate. Watched Jace reach out to her, not as a threat, but as a human being. And suddenly Hale understood. Alyssa hadn't merely been an accident. She had been a catalyst. Elias saw Jace's hesitation as betrayal, the man whispered. He believed Jace's instinct to help her was weakness, and Elias doesn't tolerate weakness. The night seemed to constrict around them. Hale steadied his breath. If Elias was there when Alyssa fell, why didn't he intervene? Or take responsibility? Or, because Elias never intervenes directly, the man said, cutting him off. He manipulates, observes, forces others to do what he won't dirty his hands with. His eyes narrowed. Evan believed he was protecting Jace by moving Alyssa's body, but Elias believed something else entirely. Halo waited, the stranger's voice lowered, almost a whisper. He believed Jace needed to face what he'd done, or what he thought he'd done. You're saying Elias let Jace think he killed her? Yes, and Jace has lived with that guilt ever since. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the forest for a brief, electric moment. Hale exhaled slowly. If Elias is alive, then he's the real threat here. The man nodded. He always has been. But why contact me? Hale asked. Why now? The stranger looked around, scanning the tree line with paranoid precision. Because Elias isn't just watching Jace anymore. He's watching you. And that means the case is close to something he doesn't want uncovered. A faint rustle echoed from the trees. Hale turned sharply, flashlight slicing through the darkness. Nothing. Just shifting leaves, restless air. Where's Jace now? Hale asked. The man shook his head. I don't know. He ran when he sensed Elias nearby. He always runs. That's how he survived. Then why call me to the river? Hale demanded. Because, the stranger replied, stepping closer. There's something you need to see. He led Hale down the muddy bank, the river's slow pulse guiding them toward a cluster of rocks stained dark by water and time. The man pointed toward a section of earth where the mud had been disturbed, freshly dug, recently refilled. He was here, the stranger murmured. Jace, hours ago. Hale knelt, gloved fingers brushing the soil. It was soft, loose, recently worked. What was he burying? Hale asked. The man didn't answer. Instead, he handed Hale a small metal bar, rusted, bent, heavy. Hale turned it over under the flashlight. Recognition slammed into him. It was part of a car jack, the same brand found in Alyssa's trunk. The breath left his lungs. He's been carrying this for years, the stranger said. A reminder of that night. A piece of the car she was driving. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe both. Hale's pulse quickened. But why bury it now? Because he sensed something shifting. Something coming. The stranger's jaw tightened. Jace is trying to let go of that night, and that scares Elias. If Jace stops believing he's guilty, Elias loses control. The forest suddenly felt too quiet, too watchful, too expectant. Hale stood. If Elias is alive, where is he? The man's eyes drifted toward the blackness beyond the riverbank. Closer than you think. A cold wind swept across the water. Hale took a step back. You said he hunts anyone who leaves the family. Why hasn't he killed you? He tried, the man said simply. But I learned how to stay ahead of him. Jace never learned that. He was never taught to run, only to hide. That's why I needed you. Needed me for what? To do what I never could, the man whispered. To bring him out of the shadows. Hale studied him. You want me to save Jace? I want you to free him. From Elias? From the curse of being a Keller. Then something shifted. A sound. Light as breath. Heavy as threat. A soft splash in the water. Both men turned. At the far edge of the river, standing perfectly still, was a silhouette. Tall, broad, motionless, watching them from the opposite bank. The stranger stiffened, breath freezing in his chest. Hale felt every nerve sharpen. Is that? He began. Yes, the man whispered. Elias Keller. Alive. Unmoving. A shadow carved from menace. Hale lifted his flashlight. The beam hit the opposite bank. The figure didn't flinch. Didn't hide. Didn't retreat. Elias simply stood there, his presence thick enough to choke the air between them. Then he raised one hand, not to wave, not to greet, but to place a single finger against his lips, a shushing gesture, a promise of silence, a threat. Lightning cracked overhead, but when the flash lit the river, Elias was gone. The stranger staggered backward, panic flaring in his eyes. We shouldn't stay here. Hale nodded once. Then tell me the rest. Everything you know. The man swallowed hard, breath trembling. I will. But you need to understand something first. What? The stranger met his gaze with hollow certainty. Elias Keller isn't trying to silence the truth about Alyssa. A beat. He's trying to erase the last person who knows it. Hale felt his stomach drop. Jace? The stranger nodded. And if we don't reach him first, he whispered, Elias will. The forest swallowed the riverbank behind them as they moved, fast and silent, following a trail only the stranger seemed able to read. Hale kept his flashlight low, scanning for movement, for the tall silhouette that had vanished like smoke on the wind. Elias Keller, a name that now felt less like a person and more like an omen stitched into every dark corner of the woods. The stranger's breath came sharp, panicked, but his steps were steady, driven by urgency, by memory, by the kind of fear that sits behind the eyes and never leaves. Where would he go? Hale asked as branches snapped beneath their boots. If you were Jace, if you were terrified, where would you run? The stranger didn't hesitate. High ground, quiet places, places Elias taught him to hide. He'd move uphill, toward the old quarry, away from the river, away from Elias. Because Elias always approaches from the water, Hale said. A pause, a shadow crossed the stranger's expression. Because Elias believes water carries truth, he likes to watch from its edge. The cold slid along Hale's spine. They climbed a steep incline, the earth loose beneath their feet, the wind cutting through the trees in low, mournful breaths. Hale's mind raced with the revelations of the last hour, Jace's guilt, Evan's control, Elias's presence, the buried car jack, the note, the sketch, and the one detail that refused to settle. Alyssa hadn't died where Evan left her. Someone had moved her. Someone had taken her. Someone who wasn't Keller family. But that was a question for later. If Elias reached Jace first, the truth would vanish with him. The stranger slowed. We're close. Hale scanned the gloom ahead. A narrow ridge emerged from the darkness, a natural stone shelf jutting from the hillside, overlooking miles of forest, a place you could see everything and still remain unseen. The perfect hiding place. The stranger motioned for Hale to turn off the flashlight. He hates bright lights. He'll think it's Elias. They approached quietly, letting the moon guide them. The ridge opened into a small clearing where the wind whistled through the rocks like a warning. Hale stepped forward. and froze. A stone lay at the edge of the clearing, its face freshly scratched with the Keller symbol. Not old, not weathered, new. Hale's pulse pounded. He was here. The stranger knelt, touching the dirt. Not long ago, minutes, maybe less, a soft sound floated from the trees behind them. A breath? A muffled sob? Or wind trapped in branches? Hale raised his head. The stranger rose slowly, eyes wide. Then, at the edge of the ridge, a figure stepped out from behind a boulder. Thin, barefoot, shaking. Jace. Moonlight carved his face into a mask of anguish. Eyes wild, clothes torn, hair plastered to his forehead with sweat and rain. He stared at them like someone expecting pain, expecting betrayal, expecting the past to swallow him whole. The stranger moved first, hands raised. "Jace, it's me!" Jace's whole body recoiled. Not from fear, but recognition. "Devin," he whispered. Hale's mind snapped into clarity. The stranger had never given his name, but Jace knew it. A name spoken through a lifetime of silence. Devin Keller, the older son. The one who left. The one who ran from Elias long before Jace ever could. Jace trembled, torn between relief and terror, torn between two versions of the same blood. Devin took a step forward. Jace stumbled back. "It's okay." Devin murmured, "I'm here to help you. I should have helped you years ago." But Jace wasn't looking at him. He wasn't looking at Hale. He was looking at the trees behind them. Hale turned sharply. The forest was too still, too perfect, too silent. A presence lingered in the shadows beyond sight. Elias. Hale whispered to Devin, "We don't have time for slow. Talk to him, now." Devin swallowed hard, stepped forward again. "Jace, I know what you think happened that night. I know what you've carried. But you didn't kill her." Jace flinched as if struck. His hands rose to his head, gripping his hair, shaking violently as he backed toward the ridge's edge. "You didn't kill her," Devin insisted, voice rising with urgency, raw with guilt. Jace let out a soft, ragged sound. A sound that was almost a sob, almost a scream. "She wasn't dead," Devin said. "I saw her breathe. I saw her move." Jace's eyes widened, pupils dilating with shock. Hale stepped closer, voice calm but urgent. "Jace, listen to me. If she lived, someone took her. Someone outside the Keller family. Someone who knew how to disappear people in these woods." Jace stared at him, breath quivering. He opened his mouth, but only a broken, stuttering whisper came out. No, he saw." Hale